to the table, working hard, girl.
Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Brendan Dunlop. We got a big hour here. Our boy Steve Sands coming up from the Golf Channel live from Royal Liverpool. Royal Liverpool. Not just Liverpool, Royal Liverpool. Very
Extra
prestigious.
special.
Yes, very, very special stuff.
There's a perception from this side of the pond that everything English is a bit royal. It's not actually the case.
No?
No. Liverpool is it's a lovely city, but it's got its.
It's gritty, man. It's incredibly gritty.
Thank you very much for the.
I think most people understand that. Like, if you follow the Beatles at all, you understand where they came from,
right?
What they were all about,
right?
They got to still run that show, don't they? Like, they got to. I've never been to Liverpool. I don't really have a big plan of ever getting there, but I got to think the Beatles are still the king. Have to be
like
more than Mo Salah, right?
You mean like not paying for a drink when they go out?
I just mean like you get to Liverpool, you understand the Beatles had presence in Liverpool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, would they be bigger than the soccer team?
Oof.
Who do you think is bigger in that town historically? Who do you think they have had more pride in?
That's a great
question. The Beatles or Liverpool FC?
I feel as though that as music has become different, where there are other things in people's lives to connect and unite them, music has become less so, particularly from maybe that city, whereas football is their identity.
Really?
And Liverpool is a place, much like I would use Newfoundland as a comparison. Liverpool is England, but Liverpudlians are different, and there's a lot of pride in being their own kind of place and their own people, much like Newfoundland. So the team makes them global, both teams, Everton and Liverpool.
I would say the Beatles are pretty global, man.
They are pretty global.
I don't know.
I just think that what these generations are like, especially.
Yeah?
I don't know if the kids are connecting with the Beatles or feel proud.
Well, that's probably
to
valid.
come around. So where the Beatles are from? That's where I'm from. When they
that's
travel
valid.
to southern Spain.
Okay.
They're wearing their Liverpool and Everton tops at the pool, and that's the talking point.
All right. Well, that'd be a shame because I think they should take pride in the Beatles being from Liverpool. I mean, come on.
I mean, I'm sure some people do. I feel like this is, we get to do a show again. This is what we line up.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, listen, Liverpool's still it's consistent. It's going to continue for a long, long time. The Beatles obviously have not been overly relevant for a long, long time.
Probably since Mike bought the collection. That was probably the last time.
Been a while. It's probably been a while. But still, when I think Liverpool, I still think the Fab Four. Personally, I know you would think.
Yeah, I think the Fab Four too. Mo Salah, Sadio Mane.
Those are your guys.
Those are my guys.
Those are your
Firmino.
guys. Yes, of course. All right, so we got Mike Golic Sr. coming up here in a moment. And going to play a clip. Saquon Barkley was doing the rounds on a podcast. We'll get to that momentarily. But I saw the report this morning that Hard Knocks, which is featuring the New York Jets, the Jets, I guess, were the ones that came up with this determination, which surprises me because my understanding was HBO had, I wouldn't say carte blanche, like certainly the NFL had the final say on editing, but there was an understanding that HBO
ran
the show and had to push what they believed needed to be a part of the program in order to make it successful. And I think one of the most difficult scenes to digest, but also what makes it incredible TV, is watching players get cut.
Yeah.
It's really harsh, like really tough stuff. But it's real, it's raw, it is theater, and ultimately that is showing something that we just don't have access to, right? You're going to see some tape from camp. You're going to see some tape from the practice field. We know what they're doing on the field. There has been access to players kind of live streaming what they're doing on the road to a certain extent, and even this on Hard Knocks, it's going to be sanitized.
Of course.
They're not going to let the cameras follow them doing the crazy stuff like going to clubs or whatever.
That doesn't happen in preseason. Come on.
Good question. I would probably guess that does happen from time to time. But the point I'm getting to is that they have announced, and the Jets, I guess, are the ones that are spearheading this, that they're not going to allow the cameras to be in the room when they're cutting guys. Mm-hmm. And to me, I can understand why the team would fight for that. I can understand why the Players Association might say, man, this is tough on our guys. These are people that are going in here. They're finding out basically they've been fired. Mm-hmm. And
we don't want that on TV.
And they don't want that on TV. And they want to kind of keep the sanctity of the room intact. But for me as a viewer, and I understand this is incredibly selfish and borderline callous because it's not my life that's being shown. I think I need that.
It's good that you have that perspective at least.
But like I understand that you're watching something that's harsh, but that's a big part of the draw. Like the beauty of Hard Knocks. Okay, some guy's running a route. Okay, they pulled a prank on somebody. Okay, the coaches are talking about certain things. Like that's cool stuff. But the raw stuff is the guy who's being told to sit down and the coach is breaking down what happened.
And it has been for 15 years.
And it has been throughout the existence of the show.
So different. And when, you do get, but for every good cut, like Luke Wilson and the Raiders that season that they were on Hard Knocks for the show Luke Wilson, how many bad cuts are there, or how many do they debate putting on the cutting room floor?
Right.
And how much of a conversation has that been over the years? We're like, look, we got to change the policy.
Valid. And
the Jets
listen,
are like, we're A-list now. We're
out of
here.
Yeah, exactly. And the flip side of it is you also get access to guys making the team.
Of course.
Which is incredibly cool. I would assume that stays in. But you kind of need everything. You need every possible ingredient. Joining us now on the Maple Toyota Hotline here is former NFLer, formerly of ESPN, Westwood 1 analyst. He's been on the show before. It's great to have him back. Here is Mike Golic, Sr. How you doing, Mike?
Doing well, gang. How we doing?
We're doing well. We're just talking about this news out of Hard Knocks. I don't know if you heard about this today, Mike, that I guess the Jets will be featured on Hard Knocks this year. They've made the determination that they don't want the cameras and they won't allow the cameras to be in the room when they're cutting players. As a former player, but now a guy who's been in media for a long time, I'm sure you could probably wear both shoes here. But how do you kind of respond to that news that the Jets aren't going to allow it and we're not going to be able to see it anymore in Hard Knocks?
Listen, this show to me, I've watched it for years, and to me it's been going downhill the last few years. I did like it with Dan Campbell and the Lions some last year, but I used to religiously watch it. To me, it's just okay now. The best part about it is the behind the scenes, and part of that is a player getting cut. That's the reality. Mm-hmm. There's hundreds of players. I went through it when I played. My son went through it when he played. I mean, it's the reality of the situation. They're going to get cut if it's on camera. Would I have liked it on camera? It's a tough moment, probably not, but it's the reality, and that's what makes those shows better. So them, kind of limiting access doesn't help the show, which is a show, like I said, that show I think has been declining in how good it's been over the last few years anyway.
I agree with you there, Mike. How much of that is because we've seen so much of this style in other sports and other companies that have, kind of maybe up the level, and maybe we're getting a little tired of seeing it in the NFL? And how much of it is the fact that, you as a former player, how much is actually happening in the locker room and how different certain guys can be when cameras come on, and just maybe as an audience, we're kind of getting sick of digesting it that way.
Well, I mean, like anything, how much can you see the same thing? In an era, back when I was playing, there wasn't a lot of ways to view things. Right now, it's instantaneous. You can see things. And also, Hard Knocks, the best thing about it is when you find the guys with personalities and who you would like them to be the stars. You would like Aaron Rodgers to be the star of this, Sauce Gardner to be the star of this, Quentin Williams to be the star of this, Garrett Wilson to be the star of this. But you don't know whose personality is going to shine through. That's why the one with the Lions was really good, because it was Dan Campbell, and we all fell in love with Dan Campbell. Especially a team that is not used to winning. If you didn't have a horse in the race, you kind of rooted for them. And that's kind of true with the Jets. The Jets are the lovable losers to everybody, even their fans. Now their team has a shot this year, but their fans are still so used to getting knocked down, they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. But that to me is what makes the show, is who turns out to be the personalities that kind of shine through episode after episode.
Yeah, and I'm wondering how you think, this is going to gel. Aaron Rodgers with the Jets and the Jets' history and their reputation, and you mentioned the fragile psyche of their fan base. And then you bring in a guy like Rodgers, who's uber confident, has had a ton of success, first ballot Hall of Famers, won a Super Bowl, won all these MVPs. Like, how does this marriage work for you in terms of, can he possibly turn the fan base into a confident fan base simply because he's there? Or could he get swallowed up in all the pessimism because the Jets are the Jets?
No, I mean, the fan base, that means nothing to – I'm not saying the fans mean nothing to Aaron, but that's not going to affect his play at all. I go back to like a Joe Burrow, and I'm not comparing a Joe Burrow, what he's done at quarterback compared to Aaron Rodgers, who's walking in a first ballot Hall of Famer. What I'm saying is Joe Burrow, we knew the history of the Cincinnati Bengals. They were another team that just lost all the time. And Joe Burrow was like, hey, that's not us. We're not part of that history. We're going to make our own history. And look, that team's got a lot of talent. They've been to the Super Bowl. And that's what Aaron Rodgers and these guys on the team, Sauce Gardner, Quincy Williams, Breece Hall, they haven't been part of they haven't been part of the fan base for the last 10, 20, 30 years that have seen the Jets lose. Now, they did go to a couple AFC title games, years ago. But overall, these young players, they haven't been part of that. It's the fan base. The players all believe they can win. So they're not going to be brought down by the fan base. I mean, once you get in your facility, once you get between the lines, once you get on game day, that's you and your players, man. That's you and the guys in the locker room believing that you can win. It's not going to be the fact that they haven't won that they go, oh, God, well, this team, just hasn't won. They're not meant to win. That's not going to be the man. It wasn't the mentality in Cincinnati, and it won't be the mentality of these players in the Jets either.
Mike, do you think the New York Jets with Aaron Rodgers do have a chance to win? Because for as monumental of a shift as this was, I do not feel like there's the hype or the expectation that this team is a contender.
Oh, I mean, they're a contender, but you have to remember they're in the much, much deeper conference. I mean, in the NFC, it's basically Philly and then San Francisco, and then there's a drop-off, to who's next, who you want to put next, whether it's Dallas or somebody else. In the AFC, you just start listing teams, and you could list, a 3 right there in the East with the Jets and the Bills and the Dolphins, and then obviously Kansas City and Baltimore and Cincinnati. The list can go on and on in the AFC. Whenever a big thing like this happens, when Brady went to Tampa Bay, they could win the Super Bowl, and they did, right? And then they re-signed all 22 starters, and they didn't cash in again, but they got that Super Bowl. They kind of sold their soul for it. The Rams kind of sold their soul for it, not having a first-round pick in till like the year 2099. I mean, but they won a Super Bowl, so it's worth it. So the Jets made this move, and now the expectation is not just to make the playoffs. The expectation for the Jets is with, and then not only with Aaron Rodgers. Understand, it's not just Aaron Rodgers is going to be a monster part of it. But one of the big reasons, and you go back to when Tampa Bay, when Tom got there, when Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl, the reason they got to the Super Bowl was their defense. Their defense was playing great. And the Jets' defense plays great. So that's going to keep scores low. They're not going to have to 35-32 everybody. You have a quarterback now, though, that can lead you back if you're down or keep you ahead if you're up. That's a huge thing. Breece Hall, how does he come back, from the knee injury? They added the wide receiver position. You got to work on the O-line. But that defense is excellent. So, yes, they can contend, because the one thing we all don't know about is attrition. Who gets hurt? Toward the end of the year or isn't available then. Yes, they absolutely have a shot to do it, but they're in such a deep conference, no way I can sit there and say, oh, Aaron Rodgers is on the Jets and the defense, I think it's a great defense, so they're the favorites. They're not, but they certainly have the ability to make a move.
With Mike Golic Sr., the other team in New York is obviously in the NFC, so they probably feel okay about their chances, considering they were a playoff team last year. And we all know they franchise tagged Saquon Barkley. We all know he's not happy. I want to play a clip here. He was on the Money Matters podcast. It's a pretty convenient podcast when you consider what's been going on in his life the last 24 hours. And here's what he had to say about his stance on the matter and what he believes his role is within the organization.
I can say you to the Giants. I can say to my teammates and be like, you want me to show you my worth? You want to show you how valuable I am to the team? I won't show up. I won't play it down. And that's a play I can use. Anybody knows me, knows that's not something I want to do. But like, it's something that crossed my mind. It's like I never thought I would ever do that. But like now I'm at a point where it's like, Jesus, like I might have to take it to this level.
So, Mike, you've been following this. You've been talking about it. Running backs in the league, it's like a mutiny almost within the NFL. Yeah. Even guys who aren't up for contracts are pissed off because other guys aren't getting paid. And now Saquon's laying it out like maybe I have to pull a Le'Veon Bell here and just not show up. Where do you see the position going in how much can actually change here just because running backs are pissed collectively throughout the league?
Well, nothing's going to change because the CBA goes for another 7 years.
Right.
So from any kind of standpoint, I've heard all kinds of talk, on TV or radio, on Twitter, on what they should do. Well, they can't do anything. Nothing's going to be amended. People have to understand the union has to do what's right for the majority of players. So even in 7 years, do you say, when the CBA is up, do you say we need to change things for the running back, for the few running backs out there, and even fewer running backs that get franchise tagged as opposed to the other 1,800 players out there? Because remember, if you bargain for one thing, you're giving up another thing. So what are you going to have to give up to bargain for this? But that's down the road. That's 7 years. Let's talk about the now. So what does Saquon Barkley do? You mentioned Le'Veon Bell. How'd that work? It didn't.
Not good.
So, pardon?
Not good. Yeah, it didn't go well.
No, it didn't. So, but it is the only way a player can show his leverage is by withholding his services. So if he withholds his services, that's fine. That's his choice. I don't think he will. But if he does, he doesn't make $10 million this year, and he's in the same boat next year if they want to tag him, whether they go through that again or not, and he rolls the dice. Or I heard, that there's the thought, don't show up till the first week. Now, okay, I get that as well. Let's see how you do without him in week one. Now the only problem is what happens to guys that hold out from camp, show up late, and then start to play, especially the running back position when you know they're going to use him. All of a sudden you get a hammy. All of a sudden you get a quad. All of a sudden you get something where you're nicked up. Now how does that help you? Where is that going to lead you now next year when you want to go through this again and they say, well, you're hurt. You were hurt before and you got hurt again. So it's a personal decision on what you do. They're definitely a worse team without him. He was the offense. He is the linchpin of that offense. I'm surprised the Giants didn't up it and pay him more and make him happy to keep him. Because even if they paid him more, it's not like their numbers, the running back numbers, are like quarterback numbers or edge rusher numbers or cornerback numbers or left tackle numbers. They're not that high. They're in there. They're just a little lower than tight end numbers. So, I thought they should have paid more, but this is going to be a decision for Saquon. I do not think he's going to sit the season. You heard him in that clip, and I believe him. I think he's a team guy. I think he's going to play. I think he'll make the $10 million. I just hope I pray if he sits out and shows up late, that an injury doesn't occur. That's always something that can mess you up.
With Mike Golic Sr. So you were out at Lake Tahoe this past week, right, Mike? You were on the links,
yes.
And everyone's buzzing about Steph Curry with that hole-in-one. He Eagles 18 to win it. I mean, were you picking up on that too? This guy, what's up? What can this guy not do, Steph Curry?
Oh, that was cool. No, listen, that was cool. People always ask me about, all the athletes and stuff that are there. Honestly, over the last 23 years of me doing the show, I've had most of these guys on and have talked to them. Listen, what he did is incredible. He's an unbelievable athlete. But for me, let me tell you, every night my wife and I go to bed, we watch Everybody Loves Raymond. And I got to golf with Ray Romano in the first round.
Oh, nice.
So that to me was cool. On the third day, I got to golf with Miles Teller, from in Top Gun. So that to me was the cool stuff. Athletes, I know, I like the guys. I get along with them. We know each other. But, man, to meet musicians, Jake Owen I got to meet as well. Musicians or the entertainers or actors and actresses, I get way more of a kick out of that. But it is an incredible scene. The American Century Classic is classic. There is no doubt about it with the fans that show up. It is a A1 event. It's phenomenal. They treat everybody well. The fans are great. And, yeah, Steph Curry is out of his mind. But did you see what happened to Marty Fish on the 18th? Marty Fish would have
gutless.
Marty Fish would have won that tournament had that not happened. That person screaming in his backswing and screwing up his drive, that was horrific. But listen, it doesn't take away from an incredible putt that Steph made, and he had a hole-in-one the day before. I mean, the dude is unreal. But I felt horrible for Marty Fish because that was such a low-ranked move by that fan.
Mike, as someone who bounces around in time slots, I got to ask you, how much do you miss the mornings? Are you still a morning guy? You mentioned watching TV at night. I can hear how much you love working game days on Sundays now, but do you still find yourself waking up early, 3, 4 a.m. in the morning because that's just the routine?
No, not 3, 4 a.m. I got up for 23 years at 4:15 every morning. It probably took me about a month when I was done with that to getting out at 4:15. I still get up, 6:30, 7 o'clock. It's not like I'm sleeping until 10 o'clock. So I still get up somewhat early, but yeah, 4:15. I've been done waking up at that time. I'm pretty happy about it.
As you should. As you should. He is Mike Golic, Sr. It's really a pleasure having you on, Mike. We love having you on, man. We really appreciate you doing this, and we'll do it again down the road.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
You got it. There he is. Mike Golic joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build their next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota, and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory. Arriving daily, it's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. Yeah, Mike and Mike in the morning. 23 years on ESPN Radio.
Waking up at 4:15, Monday to Friday.
Yeah, that's a lifestyle change.
Man,
it is a lifestyle change. You do mornings.
Yeah.
Totally different world.
I'm envious that it only took him a month to adjust to what is a normal circadian rhythm. Because it took me a lot longer than that, man.
Really?
To go the night TV, Sports Center style show.
Yeah.
You're doing that from 1 to 2 a.m. You're not getting to bed, man, before 3:34.
No, that's
like I was consistently going to bed when the sun is coming up. And that not just like day after a show. Like then that just becomes normal. And you might curb it and you might go to bed at 2, but you can't really go to bed before that.
Well, you can't get that far out of rhythm on the weekends because you got to find it again.
That's what I'm
right. It's
saying.
like shift work. Like at some point, it's coming back, and you got to be ready.
The problem that I found though is that my brain is conditioned to like think in that period. So even though I don't have that show to do, if I'm up at midnight, all of a sudden I've got article ideas. All of a sudden I got things to write. I did Dwayne DeRosario's book and wrote 95% of it between the hours of 2 and 9 a.m.
No way.
It was not something I anticipated doing or wanted to do,
I
or
guess-
probably was healthy.
Listen, that's what I'll bet you poets. I'll bet you like authors. I bet you a lot of them kind of do that kind of
Yeah,
stuff,
that
like
is
night
true.
owl type vibes, right? I don't think Shakespeare was writing stuff at 7:30 in the morning, right? He didn't sit down at 8 in the morning and say, "Let's start my day." But if he was up at 8, it was because he was writing all night.
Yeah, but
Right?
then
You're
he's
channeling Shakespeare.
yeah, but writing at candlelight. These guys. That's why these guys are going blind when they're in their 30s.
That's true. That'd be a different vibe, right? You got to get the candles cooking. You got a big idea. You can't find anything. No iPhone to just write down your thoughts.
How blessed are we with technology?
I
Oh,
know.
can I just complain about using the conveniences of technology?
Yes.
The CarPlay, okay? Obviously, you know what brand I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I love how they bill it as being like flawless and it makes the drive totally possible. Everything. No, it does not. Okay, try and send someone a voice note while you're driving on CarPlay, and it just times out when you take a breath.
I never knew that was even
It's
an option.
brutal. So
Oh, really?
you can imagine, like, I would like to call this person, but they're working. I don't know if they're available. I just got to tell them something. It's going to take me 90 seconds. I'm not texting them. I'm going to voice note it. Hey, dude, Siri, I want to voice note this. And then you take a breath in explaining, and it cuts it off. So then your message
Amateur hour.
ends up becoming 4 or 5
Amateur
messages.
hour. How could we possibly survive without 90 seconds allotted to us for a voice message?
For guys like me and you, buddy, it's
gotta have it.
difficult, you know?
Yeah, no, listen, I hear you, man. Like we've already got to a point with technology where we get pissed about stuff that is truly incredible. Like we're so like when you think about that 20 years ago, the idea of
I'm driving and I can tell the
hands-free
radio.
anything.
Yeah.
You can tell the radio something. Like that happens in my house now. Every other day I walk into the kitchen, my wife is yelling at Alexa, "Shut up." I'm like, "Sweetie, it's Alexa." All right? A, it's not real. B, it's not doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
But this is really unhealthy.
Yeah. It's
Like
all,
I walked in the other day, like, because the alarm was going off, and she had said, like, "Alexa, stop! Alexa, stop! Shut up, Alexa!" I'm like, "Are you serious? You're fighting with Alexa right now."
But it's also
Yelling.
unhealthy that we now have to like spell out things to avoid activating them, right? Like if I'm telling my wife, I'm like, "Oh, I went and GOOGLE'd something," so that it doesn't wake up and start telling me.
I know. It does make you worried that they're listening all the time.
All the
like,
time.
what do they have access to?
all the time.
That you're like,
man.
we're in the privacy of our homes, yet we brought these devices into our homes.
Oh, that's a whole other kettle of
Right?
fish,
It's
man.
in there, man. We're bringing them in. Like,
If
who's
we-
listening?
if we're
What's
having
going
this,
on here?
We're having this conversation 2 summers ago.
Yeah.
It's getting very different.
No kidding. Can you imagine what was
reaction.
probably going on in houses like in 2020,
Oh.
2021?
I didn't even mean that. I just mean the way that people react to that idea.
Well,
I
true.
think the temperature is a little different now.
Yep. You're
Not
probably
necessarily
right.
better, though.
No, you're probably right. All right, Steve Sand's coming up with the Golf Channel NBC. He's over there in the UK. We got the Open Championship teeing off early tomorrow morning. We'll get a full tee-up of the tourney with Sandsy. That's still to come. We got Chris Rose as well, the NFL Network and the Chris Rose rotation. Get his take on the Manoah start last night and other scenes and other stories throughout Major League Baseball in just over half an hour. Confirm or deny in about an hour. Brendan Dunlop in here on Bryan Hayes. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 online, tsn1050.ca. All right, our best bets brought to you by FanDuel later this afternoon. Looking ahead to the Open Championship tomorrow. Don't call it the British Open. It's the Open Championship. Steve Sands coming up here from the Golf Channel. I saw Brandel Chambly on the Golf Channel earlier today, I believe, suggesting that it's time to add a fifth major to the circuit. That with Live Golf kind of taken away from the PGA circuit, maybe if you add a fifth major, that could boost it. But I think he's suggesting the Players' Championship should be that fifth major, and that would likely not include Live Players. So I'm not really sure what Brandel's talking about here, but catch up with Sandsy here in a moment.
Just trying to manifest what he wants, right?
Yeah.
The rivalry, like the tensions that were created over the last calendar year will take a decade to smooth over.
For a lot of the louder voices, right, like McIlroy, Greg Norman, I think maybe Tiger, I'm not sure he cares that much, but like Chambly and Iman Lynch, have been really, really loud and anti-live and playing the moral high ground card a lot for a year and a half. And now the two parties might be coming together, and there's a lot of people that are like, how am I supposed to save face here? I guess I got to continue to go down this road.
There'll be that fifth Open, a major, and it'll be the Riyadh Open.
It very well could be.
Right?
Maybe we can get the Canadian Open as the fifth major. How about that?
I don't think there's enough money behind that. Buddy.
Yeah, well, you never know. You can find some money.
It's major for us.
Anything can happen. Absolutely, it's a major for us. So Steve Sands coming up here in a moment. We've got the new mayor, mayor-elect here in Toronto. I don't believe she had anything to do with this, but I saw online about an hour ago, Toronto Council approves a pilot project to allow boozing in 27 parks of the city. Yes, you're always talking about that European lifestyle. They love the booze in parks in Europe, don't they?
They do love that, yeah.
They love in Quebec as well, man. I remember going to Montreal, like in my 20s. Bars would end. We'd go hang out in a park somewhere at 4:30 in the morning.
We were talking about traveling in the States, and there must be pockets in L.A. where you can do this. But, I mean, Vegas is that just,
Vegas
walk
is just a free-for-all you can do. There's no parks on the Strip.
There's no parks in the Strip.
That's just you do whatever you want, whenever you want.
But just, the comfortable use of the term open carry.
Yes.
You can walk around with
that is a different story.
With a can of beer in your hands or whatever alcoholic drink you might be consuming.
I think in the UK you can do that. Like I feel like if it's a can, you can just basically walk around.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that definitively, but I feel like that's the case.
It's just one of those things we grow up knowing, can't do that here.
Right.
So if you see someone, you're like, where are you from? Vegas?
Yeah.
Oh, you must be English, where this just feels normal.
They just don't care that much. It's just not a big thing.
Yeah.
Over here it has always been a big thing. And I guess we're going to check it out. Now, I don't believe adults are going to use this. That's always been the argument. Adults are looking for a part. It's going to be younger people
drinking.
Yeah, which, whatever, fine. If you're legal or whatever, you live your life. I'm not here to regulate people's lives. I personally don't care. What I'm saying is I've never bought this idea that, a bunch of friends in their 50s are going to say, let's meet at Trinity Bellwoods and bring a couple bottles of wine. That's not going to happen.
I love that that's where you went because I was going the same place.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen.
With the 50-year-olds, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, like I could speak as a guy in my 40s. I'm not meeting my friend at a park for a pint.
Right.
Grow up and go to the bar.
I don't know.
Or have it in your backyard or go to your house.
I don't know what situation you might be in where you'd find that. But there's got to be something. I mean, your kids are now at competitive sports age.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, they're playing sports.
If there was what
little party afterwards, is that what you're suggesting?
Well, party afterwards or what? I mean, I'm thinking of if it's one of the Diamonds in Trinity Bellwoods. And you've got yourself a nice
See, that's a different angle that I hadn't thought of. I hadn't thought of like a sports park where then you're talking danger.
I guess so.
Then you're talking like basically baseball dad who's already a lunatic now could be 12 beers deep.
That could be a problem.
And then that 16-year-old umpire's going to have to deal with that clown.
Got to deal with PBR Pete because Olivia Chow wanted to please the kids.
I hadn't thought of that. Like I was thinking more truly like a park. But if you're talking Christy Pitts, man, it might get crazy. But I guess if this is a pilot project and it potentially expands, how far do we go and how far away are we from like tailgating in the city. And I know that they've regulated tailgating before. Remember the Argos tried that?
They tried that, yeah.
And it just didn't work because it wasn't true. It wasn't true to form.
It wasn't authentic, and also it's the Argos.
That was a part of it, too. They didn't have enough fans.
That's part of, I think
they didn't have enough people going down.
That's part of the problem.
But, like, with BMO Field, like, let's face it, Toronto FC isn't exactly a must-see team right now.
Not right now.
It's not really a hot ticket.
But
I don't know how many people are going to check them out.
But people were trying to American-style tailgate TFC when it started at BMO, because it's one of the few places in the country, certainly in the city, where you had space to do that.
Right, on the X ground.
And also with a lot of people that were coming from York region, that were coming from Woodbridge, or coming from Mississauga, and they make a whole day of it. And I actually thought the fans seemed to copy that American style very well. And it was just not something that we do here, and the police stamped it out rather quickly. But the seeds of that were possible.
Yeah, and I guess it just has never been a part of our history.
That's it. Yeah.
Like, it's not a part of the Canadian sports scene.
No.
You know, tailgating, it just feels like such a distant part of the sports world.
Well, when you go to other places, I feel very uncomfortable in the sense that I don't know what the etiquette is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can I just roll up and start having a conversation with someone who's got a barbecue going, and then they wait for them to offer me a sausage?
Right.
Like, I don't know how that works.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I got to bring my own beer. I've just come from the hotel. Well, I'm going to ask the Best Western can you just chill these PBRs because I'm rushing to the tailgate?
I guess
I don't know how this works.
I know from my own experience that you do have to bring your own. Like, I guess people could offer you them, but there's no vendor selling beer.
That's what I mean. So are you supposed to walk around with cash to, like, hey, let me buy this beer from you because I'm unprepared and foreign?
Well,
I didn't know how this works.
I guess that's a possibility. I ran through that. My brother-in-law, we were out at Levi Stadium in San Fran in 2020. Like, we just snuck in under the wire. It was like late January 2020.
Oh, wow.
Like, COVID was here, man. It was around, and it was really lurking, and the world was about to shut down.
Wow.
And it was a 3:30 local time kickoff. It was the late game of the championship weekend. So I think it's 3 o'clock, 6:30 start Eastern time. So it was 3:30 Pacific time. We got there just after noon. Like, it might have been 12:30. We're thinking 3 hours before kickoff. We brought like a couple of beers, and it was packed, like tens of thousands of people at 12 o'clock, 12:30. We couldn't believe how busy it already was, and we quickly realized, like, we're not prepared here. We have like a beer each to walk around. We got 3 hours until kickoff. What are we going to do?
So
Basically, we just walked around. Like, nothing we could do.
Right.
And we didn't join in on any spot. I'm a Packer fan. I think I had my Packers hoodie on. I don't know how welcoming they would have been anyway.
Understandable.
We're not looking to, crash some guy's tailgate party that's been going on since the 80s.
Sure.
But
aren't you curious?
But I was fascinated by the whole scene.
You're not curious by that guy who's been running the tailgate since the 80s?
Yeah.
Like, if he's got the flag out that says, I've been barbecuing here since the 80s, like, I want to try your Louisiana chicken. Jeff.
Yeah, that's valid. And I think that's a big part of it. Like, someone's on the barbecue. They've got the same dishes going. There's someone that's bringing the drink, someone that's got the music. You're right beside someone else in the same part of the lot. It's really only conducive to BMO Field, though. Like, you can't do it with Rogers Center or Scotiabank.
Yeah.
Because there's just not enough there's no room.
You wouldn't be
you can't have a big tailgate down Bremner Avenue. Be great if you could. Maybe Olivia Chow get on that. Maybe she can find a way to shut down Bremner for big games.
They shut down Queens Quay and Eglinton for a decade. They can shut down Bremner for a few
Anything's possible, right? The LRT, just pretend it's the LRT. That's exactly what it needs to be. The tailgate brought to you by LRT. Just pretend you're doing something important. Everyone knows it'll take forever. It's all good. Let's make this a positive. All right, Steve Sands coming up, all right? We will head to the UK. We'll start teeing up the tournament. Sandsy needed a few more minutes. Who does he like this week out at Royal Liverpool? We'll catch up with Steve next.
Don't sweat the technique.
All right, confirm and deny in about 45 minutes. Hopefully, Steve Sands will join us. We'll see. Sandsy's a busy man, right? He's a busy man over there. He's in the UK. You know this. You travel a lot. Brendan Dunlop's in here. You get thrown off, man. Different time zones.
Time zones are bad. Tell you my worst time zone experience when I was in Qatar for the World Cup, which is 8 hours ahead of Toronto, 11 hours ahead of Vancouver, where my co-host, the legendary Paul Dolan, was.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, my wife was working in Newfoundland, which was 6.5 hours behind me in Doha.
Mm.
Those games, we were having an off-air conversation about late-night games, and on air we were talking about staying up late. In Qatar, what you saw at 2 p.m. was 10 p.m. local. Now, the idea of watching or covering a game that's a 10:30 start when you're at home isn't as daunting as when you're doing it live. I shouldn't say daunting, but man, that catches up with you because that adrenaline that runs. First of all, you're not done your work till 1:30 in the morning.
Right.
You've got to get something to eat. You might have, maybe you're chasing a one-on-one interview, keeps you there later. Then you're trying to navigate a city that you're not a local in. I'm going to bed with the prayer call at 4:30 in the morning every morning, man.
Why not, man?
That
you
was
get the
a
World
lot.
Cup every 4 years, dude. You got to take advantage.
There's that. And it'll be different when we're in cities all across North America in 3 years' time.
That's going to be a different beast for sure. All right, the Open Championship teeing off tomorrow morning. Let's head over there. Here he is, our good buddy Steve Sands from NBC and the Golf Channel. What's it like living over there, Sandsy, for the week? You picking up on the UK vibes or what, buddy?
Fellas, I'm so sorry I was late. I apologize. I had to go do something else. It's great, man. Look, this is you guys know this is my favorite event of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. It's different. It's cool. It's a great vibe. The crowds are awesome. The courses are so cool. And just everything about it is awesome. And Liverpool's ready. Royal Liverpool's an awesome golf course. The town of Liverpool is jumping. It's going to be an awesome week.
So, obviously, we know what Rory McIlroy did last week. We understand, his importance in the golf world, what he represents. We talk about him all the time, Sandsy. He's European, but I'm curious how, the English feel about McIlroy. Is he going into this as a fan favorite? How does he stack up over there in terms of other local players?
He is so big over here. He's big everywhere he goes. But remember, Northern Ireland is part of the UK.
Right.
So it's not like he's from the Republic of Ireland. He's from Northern Ireland, which is part of the Union Jack. And he is such a massive star over here. He's popular everywhere he goes. I mean, last year at St. Andrews, if you remember in the final round, you could feel the whole world rooting for him. Mm-hmm. Everybody in the grandstands was rooting for him. And, it could be even bigger in England than it is in Scotland. And I think it's a very big deal for him. And I think winning last week, coming back here to where he won his Open in 2014, I think he's going to receive a lot of love here the next 4 days.
With Steve Sands of the Golf Channel, if I were to offer up these two options to you, which one would you take? McIlroy, Scheffler, Rahm, or the field? Who would you put your money on?
Oh, man.
So that three-pack versus the field.
That's like saying Caps or Leafs or anybody else. Okay, so who the odds would have to say take the field. But this place is hosting its 13th Open Championship. And for whatever reason, I have no idea why, they've had legendary winners here. McIlroy, Woods, Bobby Jones, Walter Hagen, Peter Thompson won the Open Championship 5 times. I mean, they have had some serious horsepower here. And I think one of those guys is going to be definitely in the mix come Sunday afternoon. Whether it's his time or not, who knows? But I would probably take the field just because you're talking about 153 versus 3. But, man, it feels like there's going to be a big-name winner here this week.
Yeah, it generally does. And, I mean, those three have been so good this season. Scheffler's been amazing. He's a top-5 machine. Jon Rahm, who's fresh, is clearly capable of doing anything. And it wasn't long ago, Sandsy, where Justin Thomas was almost a big four. It felt like it. Like JT was a guy that was lurking, and he's really struggled, including what happened at LA Country Club in the U.S. Open, where he missed the cut and he shot 81. No one's talking about him. I don't see anyone buzzing about him. No one's writing about him. No one's tweeting about him. This is Justin Thomas. He is a monster. Yeah. Is it a lock he even makes the cut, though? Is that where we're at? We're not talking title here. We're talking, can he make the cut?
Yes, it's not a lock at all. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he was on a leaderboard on Sunday or if he was at home on Sunday in South Florida watching this thing on television. I think I've told you guys this before, and I'll keep saying it. There are only 4 of these a year. Timing really matters. And in this sport in particular, you can almost bank in tennis in the 4 major championships, 4 Grand Slams, that you're going to get over the last 25 years. Nadal, Djokovic, Federer. Now looks like Alcaraz is going to be the next guy who's going to keep going and be in every one of these quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals literally for the next 20 years. That's what it seems like. In golf, it's different. Jack Nicklaus has said this to me many times, and I've told you guys this before, you don't find your game in a major championship. You bring your game to a major championship, and right now Justin's not bringing it. He's not playing well. He's not putting well. He's not hitting the ball well. His confidence is a little bit wavering right now, which is amazing considering how great a player he is. But I wouldn't be shocked if he missed the cut, and I also wouldn't be shocked because he's such a great player if he was on the leaderboard come Sunday and had a chance to win the thing. But I would not be betting on Justin Thomas this week.
Steve, you mentioned that the 13 times that this has been at Royal Liverpool and the finishes have all been legendary. I had a theory that maybe it was the weather, which in comparison to Scotland should normally be pretty good, but it's going to be pretty Scottish this weekend as I just look at the forecast and realize it's raining Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and that it's unseasonably like a Toronto fall. It's like we're talking about highs of 16, 17. That's not an English summer.
No, it's going to be kind of, I think today was really, really nice. It was strange. I mean, yesterday was a monsoon, and it was freezing. Today was fine, and it was sunny, and it was really nice. I think tomorrow's supposed to be okay, so the first round on Thursday is supposed to be okay. But come the weekend, it's supposed to be pretty nasty again. And if you're a good mutter, can you use that phrase up in Canada with horse racing?
Yes, of course. His mutter was a mutter.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. If you're a good mutter, I think this is going to be a good week for you. Now, I think people need to realize the best players in the world, they don't get bothered by rain. They don't get bothered by temperatures. They get bothered by wind. If it's windy, that makes it really tricky for these guys because they're so specific in how they hit the golf ball. But I think that when it gets windy, the more crisply you hit the ball, so the ball strikers are going to really prove out. And that's where the cream rises to the top. That's where you're going to see guys like Rahm and Rory and Scheffler, guys who really flush it, perform well when the weather's bad.
With Steve Sands of the Golf Channel, I saw your colleague, or I saw something online about Brandel Chambly making the argument for a fifth major.
Oh, boy, here we go.
Yes, to be established. And I think Brandel's arguing that maybe it should be the Players' Championship, which could exclude LIV, which would actually be hilarious and probably somewhat consistent with where he stands on things. But I don't know, man. It's been 4 for a long, long time. Can you picture that being anything that happens in the future? Like, could you go to 5 at any point or what?
Here's my argument with that. And I love Brandel to death, and he's well prepared, and he played at the highest level, and he really knows what he's talking about. And by the way, he's a really, really good dude. The reason you can't do that is because I think, and I'm a purist, and I'm an old man, but sports tradition really matters. So in hockey, okay, it's not great for television that they take 2 big breaks after the first period and the second period. It'd be a lot better television, a lot better for the audience, and ratings and money probably, if they only played at a halftime as opposed to 2 periods.
Right.
Okay? Basketball, because the guys are more athletic and they're bigger and stronger and faster, you're not going to lengthen the court and raise the rim to 11 feet. You're not going to change the way the sport is played. In my opinion, you leave it as is. It's 4. It's a great round number. It's always been that way. How it was created, how it came to fruition, that was a million years ago. You can't just invent a major. The Players is a great event. It's an awesome event, and everybody wants to win it. But you can't just all of a sudden declare it a major. 3 more majors to 21. Does that mean you're going to give Tiger 15 to 17 because he won 2 Players? Does that mean if someone wins the Players from now on, he's considered a major champion and he didn't win the British, the Open, the Masters, the U.S. Open, or the PGA? I mean, to me, that just is a little bit goofy. And majors you don't just invent them. It's the history of the sport, and I don't think you should ever change that, personally.
Yep. I'm leaning towards where you're leaning there, Sandsy. Enjoy the week out there, pal. It's going to be a fun one. Thank you for doing this.
Look out for Ricky Fowler and Colin Morikawa, fellas. Tommy Fleetwood maybe too.
Yes, I'm on all 3. Thank you, buddy.
All right, guys.
There it is. Steve Sands. I'm not kidding you. We had an internal text chain pool between myself and O. He sent me a text this morning. He goes, all right, 7-pack, go. Naturally, he just takes first pick. He takes McIlroy. I took Scheffler. He took Rahm. And we went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I got Morikawa. I had Fowler. He complained and said, I want Fowler. So for whatever reason, I gave it to him.
How does he why would you give it to him?
He claims that Ricky Fowler was always his guy, which is not true. Like Ricky Fowler.
Time?
Yeah. Like
he wears Puma? What do you mean?
Well, Fowler, like when he was in a dark place, so would occasionally pick him and then he'd miss the cut and then he'd complain about it. So he claims that's his guy. It's not true. And then I had Fowler at the U.S. Open, and we know what almost happened there, and that was a big, point of contention between the two of us. So anyway, long story short, I got Morikawa. I got Fleetwood. I had Fowler, but I gave it to O. And those are 3 picks I like. I like them a lot. I like Fleetwood a lot this week. It's a top 20 option at a minimum.
Did O give you any direction as to where to take me in the show?
No.
Light me up as the Summer League Hockey All-Star?
Not his issue. I think I can speak from experience. When he's off, don't think he's too concerned.
Not thinking about the show.
I don't think he's really losing too much sleep.
We'll see.
It's all good.
Maybe one day I'll get to a point where I get a text from O.
There you go, as you should. Final hour coming up with Brendan Dunlop. I'm Brian Hayes. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.